you that the Zoom chat is disabled, so that in order to ask question, we are going to use a Slido. So here is the Slido code in order to ask a question for the event. This event is essentially targeted to postdoc researchers and professors coming from the University of Verona, and the aim is to provide an overview of the main opportunities offered by the ERC funding, so that we are going to illustrate the key features of an ERC idea, and which is the profile of a principal investigator in ERC funding. Moreover, we are going to present the main novelties of the programs ERC under Horizon Europe, and what kind of support we are offering as grant office to candidates and winners of ERC funding. This day, here is an agenda of today's meeting. We'll start with a brief introduction to ERC calls, with a particular reference to the objective and guiding principles of the ERC funding. Then we are going to have a session dedicated to an overview on the preparation of evaluation of ERC proposals, focusing on the main individual grants under ERC, an overview of the evaluation process, and some hints and suggestions on the proposal preparation, also based on the evaluation criteria and procedures. Then we are going to have a roundtable focusing on a few success stories of researchers, professors from the University of Verona that have been winners of ERC grants under Horizon 2020. So this is going to be a roundtable, and at the end we are going to have a question and answer session for any question you might have using the Slido. So just a few minutes on this brief introduction, and to start very quickly, this is the Horizon Europe program. This is the European Union key funding program for research and innovation, with an overall budget of around 95 billion euro. And the program duration is from this year, 2021, until 2027. So it has a duration of 6 years. The main elements, there are some new elements in Horizon Europe compared to Horizon 2020. One of these elements is the European Innovation Council under Pillar 3 Innovative Europe, which provides support of innovation. And another key element is the presence of a set of missions of Horizon Europe, which are a set of measures to achieve goals within specific time frames. And the 5 missions, very quickly, then you will find more information on the links we put in the slides, are related to cancer, to adaptation to climate change, to healthy oceans, seas, coastal and inland waters. And the 4th mission is related to climate neutral and smart cities. And the 5th mission is related to soil health and food. So these are some novelties of Horizon Europe, which is organized, as you can see, in 3 pillars. So Pillar 1 is related to excellent science. Pillar 2 is related to global challenges and European industrial competitiveness, and is organized, is divided into 6 clusters. And then, as I already mentioned, we have pillar 3, which refers to innovation, and it is called Innovative Europe. The European Research Council, ERC, is inside pillar 1 of Horizon Europe, and the ERC mission is to focus on highest quality research in Europe through via competitive funding, and the purpose is to support investigator-driven frontier research across all fields of research on the basis of scientific excellence. So this really is a very quick presentation of ERC, but let's see what are the main objectives and the principles of the ERC funding. Sorry. Okay, so the first principle of ERC funding is scientific excellence. So the grants under ERC are based on one unique criteria of evaluation, which is scientific excellence of the proposal. As such, the evaluation of applications under ERC, the main grants, is conducted by the peer review panels based on a scientific excellence, and these panels are composed by scientists and scholars selected by ERC Scientific Council. Also, the evaluation of these panels can be assisted by independent external experts providing their support in evaluation. A second aspect of ERC funding is that application can be made in any field of research. So ERC funding is based on a bottom-up approach, bottom-up basis, without predefined or predetermined priorities, as usually happens in other typologies of Horizon Europe funding. So the kind of proposals that are expected in the ERC funding involve proposals with a multi and interdisciplinary nature, and which cross boundaries across different scientific and research fields, and which could include proposals on emerging fields of research, or proposals which include unconventional or innovative or scientific invention of research. So any field of research is open for application in the ERC funding. The third element, which you can see in the slide, is independence. So the idea is that ERC funding, ERC awards, is directed for excellent investigators, excellent researchers, looking to set up or consolidate their own independent research team and program. So the program is also open to established research leaders, and the idea is that really there is independence in the way the research is conducted. And it is also useful to remember that ERC grants are portable, meaning that the principal investigators may request to transfer their entire grant to a different institution, to a different beneficiary. Clearly, if this could be useful for the research, and if the conditions for implementing and managing the grant are satisfied. Another important element for and principle of ERC funding is that principally is that of any nationality, meaning that the principal investigators are welcome to apply for ERC funding from anywhere in the world. So essentially, ERC grants are open for researchers from anywhere in the world at the time of the application. The requirement is that the host institution hosting the principal investigator must be established in a European Union member or state or in an associated country. So at the end, you will see a link, a reporting indicating what are the countries which are associated country, so that can host a principal investigator. Another important aspect of ERC funding is that of open science. Here we have in Horizon Europe a criteria that beneficiaries of ERC grants must ensure open access to all peer-reviewed scientific publications that are developed during and after the grant. This includes chapters, long text publications such as monographs or PhD thesis. So there is a stronger open access requirement across the entire duration of the project to be satisfied under ERC grant. Another aspect still related to open science is data management. Essentially, there is a need to establish a data management plan within the first 6 months of project implementation for all ERC grants. And ERC, open science data management includes aspects related to accessibility of data, interoperability of data, reusability of data. So all these issues need to be addressed both in the proposal, but especially during the data management plan, a deliverable which is compulsory within the first 6 months of the project. Here you have also a link to the ERC page of Open Science, providing more information and inputs and guidelines for to follow about open science in ERC projects. Another important aspect is a gender balance. Essentially, the ERC promotes equal opportunities between men and women in the implementation of the action and aim for gender balance at all levels of personnel assigned to the action. Also, ERC principal investigators should also define and determine the relevance of integrating sex and gender analysis and aspects into their research. Finally, all ERC projects and grants need to follow ethical principles and relevant national and international legislation, and also have to comply with applicable security rules. And finally, one of the final principles is research integrity, which is more part of the ERC funding. So very briefly, it is very important to maintain and promote a culture of research integrity at all stages of evaluation of the grant. So this essentially, very quickly, are the principles and the main features of ERC funding, which you also will find described in the work program 2022 of ERC, which is available under the ERC website. Here, some useful links to ERC funding. So the first is a more broad Horizon Europe, European Commission link with all the opportunities of funding under Horizon Europe, a specific link to European Research Council, a website, the official website with all information, data, and granting procedures, and the list of participating countries in Horizon Europe and clearly in ERC funding, which you can. Finally, before giving the word to Claudia Zaccone, a very quick presentation of the grant office of the University of Verona dealing with a Horizon Europe funding proposal, both in the pre-award phase, so we assist the researcher both in finding opportunities as well as in the preparation and submission of project proposal under Horizon Europe and the ERC funding. Also, we provide assistance as well in the management of funding projects and in the preparation of scientific and financial reports. We are organized in 3 hubs related to the different departments of the University of Verona. So we have the hub related to social science and humanities, including Alessio, Lorenzi, and Anna Scandola. We have the hub Med related to medicine and neuroscience, where the Erica, Cavallini, Gasparini, and Nicolò Costelluto work. And for further, the hub related to computer science and biotechnology, where I work together with Daniela Grisi and Marta Capilli. So this was the very first introduction of the main principles and feature of ERC, and I leave the floor to Claudia Zaccone, who will moderate the session related to an overview of the main grants of ERC funding and evaluation procedure.
Thanks a lot, Claudio. First of all, I wish to thank Marta, Claudio, and the whole research unit of our university for inviting me to moderate such a virtual session. And I'm Claudio Zaccone, I'm Professor of Soil Chemistry at the Department of Biotechnologie of our university. And in this session, we will provide an overview about the preparation and the evaluation of ERC proposal. So to do that, we invited 2 guests who I'm sure they will provide extremely useful information and suggestions. So it's a big pleasure for me to introduce the first speaker, that is Claudia Jesus-Rydin. Claudia is Senior Program Officer at the ERC, where she's also coordinator of the Health System Science Research Area and of the Gender Activity Group. And Claudia is also chair of the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion at the European Geoscience Union. So please, Claudia, the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Claudio, and thank you all of you for organizing this session and for inviting me. It's really a pleasure to take part in these ERC information sessions, and it's great to see so many participants that are interested in our grants. I will try to show now my slides. I hope you can see it. I think I need to change here. Okay. Is it, can you see it?
No.
You can see it?
No, Claudia.
Okay, I will try to do it again. You can see it now?
Yeah.
I will
yes.
I hope you don't see, you see a band, a brown, gray band here, or not?
Yes, there is a
Okay.
band moving.
How about this? It's okay?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay. Let me see. Okay. So Claudio did an excellent job of introduction to the ERC, and he's already mentioning some of the features I had planned to mention. So that's great. It saves me time. So Claudio has already presented the mission of the ERC, that it is indeed to encourage the highest quality research in Europe by supporting investigator-driven frontier research across all fields of science on the basis of scientific excellence. Okay, so the ERC is unique. You may all already know this, and we should remember why the ERC is unique. it is for the fact that we have what we call a scientific council. So to the best of my knowledge, this is the sole public funding that is available to researchers that is actually founded, designed, and governed by scientists for scientists. So you have here a picture of our current scientific council, which is composed of 22 prominent scientists in Europe, and that they indeed are the ones that drive the ERC and make the adjustments that we have seen throughout the years to our grants and even the creation of new grant schemes. I will be mainly talking about the three main individual schemes that we have at the ERC. So the starting grant, the consolidated grant, and the advanced grant. So the starting grant is what we call our most junior funding, which is for candidates that have PhD that have taken their PhD 2 to 7 years ago. And then the consolidated, which is 7 to 12 years after PhD. The advanced grant, we have no eligibility window based on age of PhD, and it's open to all senior scientists. You are able as a candidate to enlarge this window of eligibility due to various situations. Paternity leave, maternity leave, long-term illness, and national military service, which in some countries can be quite long. So you can submit the necessary documents to ask for an extension of this eligibility window. As I mentioned before, we do not have eligibility windows in the advanced grant, but we ask the panel and the candidates to focus on the last 10 years of track record. So with the same approach, you can also ask to enlarge this window of 10 years if in the last 10 years you indeed had some career breaks. So this is very important and is often forgotten in the advanced grant by the candidates. So we have generous funding. So it goes from 1.5 million for the starting grantees and then up to 2.5 for the advanced grantees. You can ask for a top up, and now it's up to 1 million across all the three schemes. Before it was a little bit lower for the starting grant and a little bit higher for the advanced grant, for the consolidated grant, and then the advanced grant had the top budget for the top amount for asking for this extra funding. And there are three main reasons that justify this top-up funding, which is access to large facilities, very expensive field expeditions, or access to the transports, say for instance, ship expeditions, and when you relocate from outside Europe into Europe, or so Europe as a member state or associated country. I will not be talking about the synergy grants or the proof of concept because I'm not directly involved, but if you have some specific questions about it, you can send me an email and I will make sure that you will get a reply from the colleagues that know the details of these calls. But I can tell you, so synergy is a very large grant, is the largest grant that we offer, is not PI driven, so it's actually focused on a group of researchers, normally 2 to 4 researchers, and it can go up to 6 years in terms of duration of the project, and you can have one researcher that is based outside the EU member states or associated countries. The proof of concept is the smallest size grant that we have, so it's only up to 150,000. But you need to be an ERC grantee to be eligible to apply, because it's actually to demonstrate that the idea funded by the original ERC grant has the innovation potential and significant economical or societal benefits. So how is the ERC panel structure? So what we've done at the ERC was we've divided all fields of science in little compartments. So we have at the moment 27 panels. We used to have 25. Now you see here in red the 2 new panels that were created in 2021, so the ongoing calls. That is P11, which is focused on materials engineering. And you have the one in social sciences and humanities that is focused on human mobility, environment, and space. Myself, I'm the coordinator of the Earth System Science panel, so I oversee all the calls in starting, Consolidator, and advanced grant that are submitted to this panel. So how does it work, the submission of a proposal? So proposals are indeed submitted to a targeted panel. However, if you work with an interdisciplinarity field, you may flag a secondary review panel. And in this case, what we do as the targeted panel, we ask a review from the secondary panel. So that's what we call a cross-panel review. And this is really to tackle proposals that are in between two different disciplines or two different areas of research. There is also the possibility of transferring proposals between panels, but this is extremely exceptional, and it needs the agreement of the two chairs of these panels. The two panels need to agree that indeed the proposal and the PI will be best served if it's changed or transferred to another panel. Regarding now the proposal structure, so you have the administrative forms, that's the part A, where you have a lot of forms to fill and a lot of information. Take care, because these are just administrative forms. They do not reach the panel. So if you want to convey any information to the panel, do not add annexes, because the rules are we do not share any of these forms or annexes with the panel. I don't even get to see it. I would have to search for this information. Then we have the part B1, which is evaluated both at step 1 and at step 2, which is the synopsis of the proposal. And you have the part B2, which is not evaluated at step 1. So what does this mean? It means that if you don't pass from step 1 to step 2, so if your part B1 is not convincing enough, nobody will ever see your part B2. So just to emphasize this, so step 1, part B1, which should be convincing enough to work as an invitation to pass to step 2. So this is really, it's your ticket. And sometimes I hear from candidates that, oh, they spent a lot of time in the full proposal developing a part B2, and then they just rushed into filling in the part B1. Big mistake, because the part B2 can be excellent. If the part B1 is not convincing enough, you don't pass to step 2 even. So demonstrate clearly the novelty in the part B1 and the feasibility. This is what we are looking for. And avoid too many references to part B2. So, you know, these teasers, oh yes, more information can be found on the part B2, can be really annoying. Panels normally don't like it. At step 2, then indeed we get to see the full proposal, and it should, of course, confirm the expectations that were created in part B1 with further scientific details, but without repeating the same information, because once we reach step 2, the panel, so all the reviewers get access to both the part B1 and the part B2. And especially at step 2 with the remote referees, which I will talk later, they see the two parts at the same time. So they really read through the two parts, and it can be quite annoying if there is a lot of copy and pasting between the two parts. Regarding the proposal evaluation process, so we work with a single submission, but it is a two-step evaluation. So step 1, we start with a remote assessment by the panel members, focused on part B1, which is the synopsis of the scientific proposal and the PI's track record. Then we hold a panel meeting. In that panel meeting, we make decisions. So we ask the panels to rank all the proposals, and there we decide the proposals that get retained, which get the score A and pass to step 2, and those that are rejected, and they can get a score B or a score C. I will, in my next slide, I will talk about the difference between the B and the C. If you get rejected, the positive thing, let's be positive, is that you get the feedback. You get the feedback from the individual reviews and the panel comment, which can be extremely useful for a resubmission of. So you get feedback from top scientists in your area that give you some constructive feedback on how to improve that you can use to improve your proposal. Then step 2, we get a remote assessment, again, by the panel members, but also, as Claudia mentioned correctly, what we call external reviewers or remote referees. And these remote referees, we use the world as a pool of experts, can be anyone in the world who was nominated by the panel members as an expert in the core field of your proposal. As I mentioned before, here they get access both to part B1 and the part B2. At step 2, we have again a panel meeting, but we have a new component, which is the interviews. So starting grant and Consolidator always had interviews, but now from 2021, we will have it now for the first time. Advanced grant will also have interviews. And then again, we rank the proposals. They can be A's or they can be B's. And we even have the possibility that they are A's funded and or A's fundable. So we would have funded them if we had, let's say, a limited budget. And then the candidates get feedback also from the step 2. So resubmission rules, this is where I want to talk about the difference between a B and a C at step 1. So a B is somebody, if you get a B at step 1, it means that you cannot resubmit again the year just after the rejection. And if you get a C, you need to wait 2 years until you are eligible to submit the proposal again. If you get an A, you are if you get an A at step 1, you already know. So if you are invited for an interview, you already know that next year, even if you don't get funded, you are eligible immediately to submit in the next call. And also, if you get a B at step 2, you are eligible to submit. So how do we proceed with the proposal reviewing? Each panel has an average of, it varies from 14 to 18 panel members. Each proposal gets at step 1, 3 to 4 reviews at least. And at step 1, at step 2, 5 to 6 reviews. That's what we aim for. We normally try to have at least two remote referees, so experts really in the field that review the proposal at step 2. So if you do the math, you will realize that panel members evaluate remotely only a subset of proposals. However, before we meet for the panel meetings, we do ask them to familiarize themselves with all the proposals before the panel meetings, or at least to familiarize themselves with the reviews and the topics of the proposals. And this is for one simple reason, because the decisions are made as a panel. So it's a plenary decision. The final ranking is really decided by these 18 panel members. So it's not, panel members cannot just make comments and decisions about the subset of proposals that they have seen, because otherwise they wouldn't be making decisions just about the core, the closest proposals to their fields, which is not really the goal. Composition of the panel. So how do we select the panel members? There are no databases and there are no expressions of interest. We do not work with any of this. There is a pre-selection that is made based on the expertise that is needed in the panel, but also the recognition that the scientists have in their field. And then the ultimate decision is made by our governing body. So our scientific council are really the ones that handpick each one of the panel members that sit in our panels. Also, we work with alternating panels. So those that work in, let's say, in 2021 will only be expected to work in 2023, but that doesn't mean it will be exactly in the same panel. So if they were serving in a starting grant, it doesn't mean that they will be serving again in starting grant. They can be changed to Consolidator or advanced grant, depending where there is a pressure to have that type of expertise. We also have a percentage of renovation always in each call, in each panel, as to have new blood coming in and to avoid some kind of conformity bias within the panel when you have the same people always working together. And some panel members always also ask for time out, because they have a heavy workload, they have new duties, and they ask, look, I cannot serve in 1 year, please, or in 2 years, please keep me on hold for another moment where I'm where I'm more available. And there are also panel members that we do not renew their invitation. So this all to say that trying to guess who will be in the panel is a waste of time. So do not invest time here. Invest time in writing a good proposal, which is more useful in my opinion. Just a little information about the interview. So the interviews take place at step 2, and they have a total duration of 25 minutes. In my particular panel, but this varies, we work with a 5 minutes presentation and then 20 minutes questions and answers. Why did I wanted to put this slide here? Because I think it's very important for candidates that reach the step 2 to understand the purpose of the interview. The purpose of the interview is to clarify any doubts that the panel may have about your proposal. So make the answers quite succinct and quite to the point to allow time for any question that the panel has to be clarified. This is very important. Now for some news, as Claudia mentioned, there are some news coming up in Horizon Europe, and one of them is the change in the eligibility to finalize the contract. So this comes from above the ERC, so as an umbrella under the umbrella of the Horizon Europe, where gender equality plans must be implemented at all host institutions in order for them to be eligible to host projects that are funded under Horizon Europe. So what the ERC has decided is that you will be eligible to submit a proposal even if your host institution does not currently has a gender equality plan. However, in order to finalize the contract, you need to have, your host institution needs to have a gender equality plan. So this is something new, and it's very important that the host institutions that do not have a gender equality plan start really working towards this, so that you're not rushed and pressured for this subject. Also, something new, very specific to the ERC, is a change in the PhD eligibility reference date. We were very flexible in identifying the date of the PhD date, and some were the date that was in the diploma, some were the date of the defense. Now, to avoid this gray area in which we were, from 2023, the reference date towards the calculation of the eligibility period will always be the date of the defense. And if the PhD certificate does not show the defense date, the candidate must ask for written confirmation from the awarding institution. We understand that this can cause some hassle to PIs, also because it's a change, so we become a little bit less flexible in this state. Therefore, it's only for 2023. So as to give time to host institutions and to PIs to really calculate their eligibility windows properly based on this fixed date. Okay, now I will go just for some quick advices. So if you plan to submit a proposal to the ERC, you need to plan ahead. If you really, really want it, you need to think what your next moves must be. So for instance, when is the best moment? So do you want to publish on this or that journal? You want to be more visible in your community? Start thinking and planning and then taking the necessary steps. Testing the waters, yes, it's very nice to get the feedback from the panel on your research idea. Take care, because as I mentioned before, there are submission and eligibility consequences. So if you send a really just a testing the waters proposal just to get feedback from the panel, take care, because if you get a C, it will be 2 years that you need to wait before you are eligible again. So take care so that then you don't move from, let's say, starting grant eligibility window to the consolidator window. And productive periods, so be honest and open about it and explain what happened. Don't expect that the panel will not see it, because they will see it and they can then imagine whatever they want if you do not provide an explanation for this. Tailor-made proposals only. To the best of my knowledge, there are no other funding that is as generous as the ERC at the moment, at least in Europe. So it is very important that you tailor-made the proposal to this highly competitive scheme. The opposite can be done. You can then transform an ERC proposal, let's say even a non-successful one, into a smaller one that you submit, for instance, to a national funding. But the opposite is quite difficult. And we have seen it in the past with some countries that were taking this approach, just recycling their national proposals to the ERC, and that was proven to be the wrong approach. Think out of the box, but by bringing arguments from the box. So originality is crucial, and it may be risky, but you need to demonstrate the feasibility. Demonstrate your competitive edge by acknowledging the existing work, and even sometimes from before when you were born, but also by acknowledging your competitors, because actually maybe some of them may be in the room, so don't ignore a specific work or a specific group from competitors. So that's quite important, and it can be really a deal breaker. Expensive equipment. As I mentioned, you can ask for very expensive equipment. However, don't forget that the ERC is not about funding infrastructures. It's about funding a research idea, a scientific idea. So it's great that you ask for this equipment, but what is the scientific hypothesis that is actually driving the project? Size of your project, it can be up to 5 years, but it's not mandatory. So if you don't need such a large project, you need to make it convincing. It needs to make sense. Sometimes we see, for instance, that there is one part of the project that it makes sense, and then there is a kind of a side project that the panel understands, okay, this is just really to enlarge the budget and to enlarge the duration of the project, but actually we don't see any connection between the good project and this little annex here that appears and is not very clear why. So be careful, because in such a competitive scheme, you can say, okay, but the panel could just cut that part of the project that they are not convinced about. Look, as I was saying, in such a competitive scheme, do not expect that the panel is going to design the project for you. It's your responsibility to make a compelling case about your project. Buzzwords. Clearly demonstrate your project and your CV without using too much buzzwords. So this leader, I'm the best, I am really the crème de la crème. Let the panel conclude that based on what you have put in your proposal. I've seen a lot of panel members that get really annoyed with these buzzwords. Select the list of publications that makes sense to the projects, and you need to find a balanced choice between what is the most relevant to the project, but also the ones that are the sexiest, or the ones where you had the most prominent role, for instance, as a first author. Confidence, take care to not come across as arrogant or unrealistic. And it's getting better. In the first years of the ERC, this was more common, but now I think people start to realize that this can actually be counterproductive. Okay, I'm just about to finish. You have here the timetable for the upcoming calls of the ERC, including the one of the Synergy, so which is the very next one. The deadline is 10th of November, and then the starting grant is 13th of January, consolidated grant 17th of March, and advanced grant is 28th of April. You still have quite some time to work on your proposal. My last advice to you is do your homework. There is a lot of information available in the ERC website, including a list, a database of our funded projects. It can be really nice to go and see what has been funded in the past in your discipline, so that you get a little taste of what are the things, what are the projects that have already been funded, or the size and the ambition of the projects that we fund. There is also an amazing list of tutorials that I would really encourage you to follow. And of course, read carefully the information for applicants and the ERC work program. You can reach me by email, so please do not hesitate if you have any questions at all. And I would just leave you with some of these questions. If you plan to apply to an ERC grant, you don't need to take note of this because I will share my slides, so you will get all of this information. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Claudia, for your extremely clear presentation, and especially for all the extremely useful tips that you provided. I'm sure there will be a lot of questions. So, but now I wish to invite our second guest, that is Professor Marco Bettinelli. I know that most of you already know him and his excellence in scientific activity. Marco Bettinelli is full professor in general and in organic chemistry at the Department of Biotechnologie of our university, and he has been several times panel member of the ERC Advanced Grant in Synthetic Chemistry and Materials Research. Please, Professor Bettinelli, the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you very much for your very nice introduction, and it's a pleasure for me to be here. Claudia will be a difficult act to follow because she has explained, I think, almost virtually everything. So I will try to propose to you some ideas and some feelings and some convictions that I have in the slides that I will share with you now. Sorry. Can you see my slides?
No.
No? Why is that?
We can see, I think it's a folder in documents.
Why is that? Oh, yeah. Can you see now?
No.
No? Can you see?
I think we are seeing your text now, but not the presentation.
Professor Bettinelli,
Yeah.
maybe you could stop sharing and share again exactly the presentation file that you see. Because
Okay.
yes, and now share. Here, yeah.
Better?
Perfect.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you very much. So I will try to give some ideas about ERC grants from the point of view of a panel member. And the first thing is that ERC grants are really a very exciting possibility for all researchers in all fields, because there are ERC grants that are tailored for people working on research in all stages of the career, in all research domains. So it is possible for everybody to find a niche in which a field in which it is possible to submit, hopefully successfully, an ERC project proposal. ERC grants provide a lot of money. You have seen, we'll come back to this later, but they are very generous. And if you get an ERC grant, you will really make a very important step forward in your resources. Not only resources, but also recognition is provided by ERC grants, which can be useful for the future if you want to be promoted, if you want to go ahead with your career. And in general, it's an opportunity that will change completely your scientific life for the rest of your career. So I think it's very important to take this into consideration. And if you have a good idea, I think it's very important to try and to submit a proposal. Now, this has been already proposed by Claudia. There are three main types of ERC grants: the starting grants, which are possible for researchers from 2 to 7 years after the PhD. The money is already very good, 1.5 million. The Consolidator grants for mid-career people between 7 and 12 years after the PhD, and advanced grants for everybody, but generally established research leaders apply for the ERC grants. It is the stage in which probably competition is the strongest, but it's 2.5 million for 5 years. I am a professor of inorganic chemistry, so I've been part of the advanced grant panel, synthetic chemistry and materials, which is PE5, and I've done it for 3 times in 2016, 2018, and 2020. And every time I finish, I think, well, it's been a very, very hard work. I'm not sure I will do it again. But then I recognize that it is not only very tough work, but it's an extremely exciting and rewarding work. And then it's a fantastic way to learn a lot of things that you don't know, to have, you know, a sort of substrate that generates new ideas. And it's tough because you have to study a lot of proposals, but it is also tough because you are confronted with such an awful lot of excellent science that it's very difficult to select only a few proposals in a large group. And every time you feel, I wouldn't say guilty, but you feel that it's a pity that not more proposals can be funded, but unfortunately, it's not possible to fund everybody. It's also very exciting because in the panel, there are very, very strong discussions, thorough and sometimes passionate, and sometimes it's, you know, you enter so much into a project that you would like to defend it all the way, but at the end, it's necessary to reach a consensus. What is important is that all the panel's members that I have met, and I've done it for 3 times, have always worked in a fair and especially unbiased way. So everything is fair. There is no distortion due to anything else perturbing the work of a panel. The only thing which is important is excellence. And in the end, when a consensus has been reached, everybody is convinced that the only mechanism that we have used is and thought about is the advancement of science. So there is nothing, you know, strange going on in a panel. People only think about advancing science. Claudia has already explained that the criteria are the novelty of the proposal, the scientific excellence of the principal investigator. And so we need to judge the proposal and the CD of the PI. The PI must be innovative and creative, and the proposed research must be groundbreaking. It must be innovative, must be in a way revolutionary. It must lie way beyond the state of the art. So if you have a good idea, which on the other hand is not really revolutionary, groundbreaking, it's not a real breakthrough, so it is in a way routine, this research will not be funded by ERC. As well as explained by Claudia before me, panels are composed of a lot of panel members, 14 to 18, but panels are in a way very broad. And I can tell you, I have been a member of the panel P5, synthetic chemistry materials. And in synthetic chemistry materials, there's a lot of things. All the organic chemistry is there, a lot of inorganic chemistry, all the materials. It goes from, you know, in a way, biological chemistry, down to, you know, solid state physics and materials physics. Everything in between is involved. And this is true for every panel. So what is the consequence of this? Is that the panel members cannot know everything in which is the subject of a panel. So then in the first round, when the proposals will be evaluated by the people in the panel, it happens very frequently that you have to evaluate a proposal that in a subject that you don't know very well. You are not a real expert, you are a generalist expert. But it is important for this reason that the first round, the proposals in the B1 form must be written in such a way that even people not really expert in the field can read it and appreciate the novelty and the high gain that derives from the proposal. On the other hand, in the second round, the selected proposals will be evaluated by experts in the field, external experts, external reviewers. So it is possible to go more deeply into the details of the proposals, which will be evaluated by real experts. I've been working only in panels for the advanced grants, so I have really never experienced interviews. The first time the interviews will be used will be next time for the advanced grant. But for the starting grants and the Consolidator grants, the interviews have been there all the time. And colleagues of mine have told me that the interviews are extremely important, often crucial. And it is imperative that you face the interview in a convincing way, because the impact of the interview will be huge, will be very, very strong. As I was saying before, there is no type of bias or discrimination. So nationality is not important, gender is not important, where you have been working in the past or now, the type of laboratory where you are or have been is not important. The only thing which is important is the excellence of science. So be sure that everything will be treated by the panels in a fair and respectful way. Of course, the CV is very important, but you cannot suddenly 1 year before applying create your CV. You need to think, as Claudia said, you have to think in advance and try to build a CV which contains innovative projects, which shows independence, and in which you have demonstrated that you are excellent. So it is essential to prove to be able to conduct groundbreaking and innovative research, and therefore publications are very important, and you should try to publish in top journals, which, I mean, not necessarily should be Nature or Science, but journals that are regarded as important and authoritative in your research field. And try to publish in these journals, because this is important to shape your CV. In the panel where I have served, H-index has never been mentioned. So H-index is not important. And I don't think that other metrics are extremely important. It is important to publish in excellent journals and publish excellent science. You need to be independent. So as soon as possible, try to publish without your mentors. Try to publish excellent science, innovative science, but without your PhD or your postdoc advisors. This is very important, because there are excellent scientists that continue to work for all along their careers with their PhD or postdoc advisors, and never prove that they are independent. They are excellent, but not independent. And this is not good if you want to be funded with an ERC grant. And also, it's important to have documented achievements, from conferences, from scientific societies, prizes, fellowship awards. This will help you to obtain an excellent CV. And of course, you need to think about these things in advance. You cannot improvise a good CV. Round one. As I was saying before, the experts will be generalists. There may be, among the 14, 18 people, there will be 1 or 2 experts, real experts on the proposal that you are presenting. But your proposal should be understood by everybody in the panel. If there is a discussion, and there is a discussion of the proposal must be understood by everybody. This has already been pointed out by Claudia, but when you write your proposal, don't be too confident. Don't praise yourself too much. Don't say that you are excellent, that you are, the best in the world, that what you are doing is revolutionary. Let the science speak. And write your proposal clearly. There are excellent scientists that write really awful proposals because they use a lot of acronyms without defining them. And if you are a generalist expert, you don't know these acronyms and you go crazy when you write a proposal, and there are terms that are not defined or are not explained. So avoid jargon in round one, avoid too many acronyms, and if you use acronyms, please define them. Round two. In round two, you can be more specific, you can use more jargon, but you have to convince the experts that the project is feasible, but it's high risk, high gain. So it is extremely innovative, groundbreaking, but the consequences of your research will be extremely important. Feasibility is important, and it's a good idea to write in your B2 form what you can do to mitigate the risk in the case something goes wrong. So indicate risk mitigation plans. And as Claudia was saying, you had to justify the amount of money that you apply for. And all the resources that you require must be very well and convincingly justified. I'm approaching the end of my very short talk. Final comments. The most important thing is that you must have a good idea. You must work on it. You must write your proposal in a way that you can convey your good idea to the reviewers. But you don't have to be too shy. Think big. Think about important problems. Think about revolutionary ideas, because that's what the ERC is for. And remember one thing, even in the case in which you will not be successful, you will learn a lot of things, how to write a proposal efficiently. You will have a feedback from a panel of experts that are more or less senior. In the process, you will become a better scientist in any case. So don't be too shy. My conclusions, I had a to-do list and I have completed it. And I'm showing you this cartoon because ERC is also creating, being the subject of comics. And there is a project which is called ERC Comics, which is a creative and ambitious project that you find at this address. And this project has the goal of innovate the way in which science communicated in Europe. So if you want, you can have a look. So many thanks for your attention. And of course, I am still working at the Università di Verona. So if you want, you can get in touch with me. And if I can provide any type of advice, I will be very happy to do it. Thank you very much again.
Thanks a lot, Professor Bettinelli, for all the extremely useful suggestions you provided. I already saw that in Slido there are a lot of questions for you and for Claudia. Probably, Marta, we have time for 1-2 questions, and we will leave all the others for the round.
Yes, exactly. I'm going to show you the Slido, so that maybe the ones of you who didn't yet tried tried it, they can see it. So, okay, you can join the Slido and insert this ERC UNIVR hashtag as a code. There are a couple of active polls that you can answer if you want. This is the first one, and I will deactivate it after the first questions and activate other polls. So during the event, you can answer them if you want. I'm trying to move this. Okay. So I just wanted to have a couple of questions for Claudia and Professor Bettinelli, just to be just to stop a little bit the flow and have a short break with the questions, but all the others will be hopefully answered after the roundtable. So the first question is, I think, for both Claudia Vin and Professor Bettinelli. So the first question, and I highlighted, is this one, is for Consolidator advanced program, it is more important a good CV or a good idea? And I would say also for the starting grants. So who wants to answer this?
Go ahead, Claudia.
Well, it's equally important, the track record and the project. So this is what we've always focused on, is that it is we focus on two criteria, and that is really the track record and the quality of the project. It is true that in the past, so if you remember the first calls of the ERC, the CV for the reviewers was the first criteria, was criteria 1. And then the project was criteria 2. At some point, we decided to invert this. And that was specific to emphasize the good idea. And I will invite Marco, of course, to comment on this. But to the best of my knowledge, we have never rejected a project because that it's outstanding, innovative, groundbreaking, because we thought it was a poor CV. I don't remember this. We look at the feasibility, of course, if the person is independent, but we have never said, look, this is a fantastic project, is an amazing project, is really what we look for, but the CV, not so convincing. But Marco, you can correct me.
No, I agree fully. Of course, I am maybe a little bit biased by the fact that I've been working for advanced grants only, but and for the advanced grants, normally the CVs are almost always outstanding. But the good idea is the first thing that we think about. And so the good idea is probably a little bit more important. But I fully agree. I've never seen a proposal rejected because the CV was not good enough, if the idea was good.
Great. So thank you. But actually, I go through the questions as they are liked, because I think that these are very interesting. The second one is how I can properly compare my CV versus my field community. That's an interesting question, I think, for Professor Bettinelli mostly, because maybe he has this.
The CV must, in order to be successful, the CV must show that you are able to propose groundbreaking research. So I think you have to analyze your CV in such a way that you must understand where the innovative part is and how groundbreaking it is. it's not important to compare with the community. The nature, the character of your CV must contain some groundbreaking research. If you have been doing, routine things all your career, well, in this case, maybe it's not worth the effort. But you must, have published in important important journals. You must have published in an independent way, not always with the same people, not always with your mentors. I wouldn't compare the CV with other people. You must analyze your CV and try to build it in such a way that you prove that you are independent and able to do groundbreaking science. Claudia, I don't know if you agree.
I fully agree. There is no need to try to compare CVs. Your CV is unique. We have to agree on this. So what you need is to demonstrate really that you are the best person to implement this project, and that's it. It's I fully agree with Marco's comments.
That's great. The other question, it's a practical question. I want to answer this one for Claudia. Should maternity, paternity be supported by official documents? It is not always possible. For example, in Italy, paternity was recently introduced, and maybe they don't have.
We have a different approach. Maternity versus paternity. So maternity is quite straightforward. It's the candidates only need to upload the birth certificate of the child, and immediately we will extend the eligibility window by 18 months per child. In the case of paternity leave, what we ask is to upload official documents that state clearly what was the duration of the paternity leave. So you need to really put an official document. We've also had, I remember in the past, that because it was not straightforward in the country to have such documents, it can also be something from the host institution that acknowledges that indeed there was a paternity leave taken.
Okay, thank you. I think I will stop here with the questions and move to the round table, and then all the other questions we will go through after the round table. You can also ask a question to our speakers, Claudia and Professor Bettinelli, of course, and if they are still with us after the round table, they can answer. Okay. Let me change the sharing. Hope you can see. Can you see the slides?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Then I will now introduce our roundtable speakers, which are all professors at the University of Verona, and they are all ERC grantees. The first one, I will go in alphabetical order. So, say hello to Matteo Ballottari, who is Associate Professor of Plant Physiology at the Department of Biotechnologie. And he is now a grantee of SOLENALGAE, which is a starting grant, but he has also other ERC grants. Dario Calomino is Associate Professor of Numismatics at the Department of Cultures and Civilization. He has recently started this Consolidator grant, which is called RESP. Gabriela Constantin is full professor of general pathology and immunology at the Department of Medicine. He is now a grantee of an advanced grant, which is called the Immuno-Alzheimer, but she has a lot of ERC grants expertise. and Paolo Fiorini, who is full professor of robotics at the Department of Computer Science, which is now a grantee of an advanced grant, which is called ARS, and he has also other ERC grants. So I will first, in this roundtable, give the floor to our guests and to introduce themselves a little bit better and their projects. So the first one who's going to speak is Matteo Ballottari. I will go on with this slide which introduces his grants.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks for the kind invitation to give my experience in the ERC. Yeah, I'm the principal investigator of the ERC starting grant SOLENALGAE. It is 2015, not 2016, and it was just finished some days ago because it was a 5 years project, but then we were able to ask for a 6-month extension due to the COVID pandemic. And this project, as was mentioned before, really changed my life in general, not only scientific life. And it allowed me to have my own independent group, to do a lot of international research, to build up my, to establish myself in the scientific community where I work with. And this project is about the molecular basis of photosynthesis in microalgae, essentially, in order to produce a bio-based project. It has both basic research, but also is a little bit of applicative research. And indeed, thanks to the results of my project, I was able to obtain other 2 ERC grants, which are the proof of concept grant that was mentioned before. And this proof of concept grants, the AST-Omega and the AST-EASY, are grants that are focused on the possible application of the result from the main ERC project into the market. So here we were able really to go into the possible use of our research, and at the end we were preparing a business plan, and we are also in the negotiation to have our own startup with this result. And yeah, what I can say is that these ERC projects are really competitive, but they are an incredible opportunities for researchers to make a really important step in their academic career. So I can certainly give more details later if there are some questions.
Thank you, Matteo. So the next one is Dario Calomino. The floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone, and also thank you for inviting me to this ERC Day. So my project is titled RESP, which stands for the Roman Emperor Seen from the Provinces. And I should mention that it has literally just started last week, so on the 1st of September. So I'm at the very first step of my process. But so the research rests within the field of classical archaeology and the digital humanities. And the main objective is to investigate how the Roman emperors between the 1st and the 3rd century AD were represented on visual media in full figure and on portraits in the provincial cities of the empire, which means essentially looking at local art, but also at other aspects of the social and economic life in which of the provinces in which the imperial image was adopted, and particularly on local coinage, which is the main resource of investigation. And so I think the originality of this approach is the change of perspective from which the imperial image will be analyzed, instead of focusing on the official products of the central administration in Rome. We will be looking at the point of view of the periphery of the empire, so sort of a bottom-up perspective from the point of view of the local artists, but also of the local elites and the administrations who commission these works. From a methodological point of view, the main element of innovation is that we will be focusing on the compared evidence of local coinage and local sculpture, but taking coinage as the point of departure of the investigation to reconsider sculpture rather than the other way around, as it is normally done in scholarly research. And the other strong point of innovation is the sustained use of 3D technology, scanning and visualization, again, to compare and overlap the data of coinage and sculpture, especially to reconstruct the models from which the provincial portraits were generated. Just a final note to say that the project is based at Verona University, but it is in partnership with the two important UK institutions with which I have collaborated over the years before moving to Verona, which are King's College London and the Work Manufacturing Centre at Warwick University, where the scanning equipment and the digital engineers are based. And it also involves a small partnership with the Witch Museum, where the objects will be studied and scanned, but also where, among the other outputs, we are planning to develop a small temporary exhibition to disseminate the results of the project. So I'm happy to tell you more about it in the roundtable.
Thank you. The next one is Professor Constantin, Gabriela Constantin. You can go ahead.
So, hi everybody. I'd also like to thank for the invitation to participate to this ERC Day. So the title of my project is very direct, it's very understandable. So it's the role of immune cells in Alzheimer's disease. So in this project, we are studying, as it also shown in the picture on this slide, how immune cells, how leukocytes from blood vessels, leukocytes such as neutrophils or lymphocytes, migrate into the brain in animal models of Alzheimer's disease. So we are studying the trafficking of these cells into the brain, and also once arrived in the brain, how these cells interact with host cells, with cells that they find in the brain, such as neurons, such as astrocytes and microglial cells, so, and how immune cells contribute to neuroinflammation and also eventually to neuronal damage. So, and this project has also a part which is dedicated to the obtainment of data, of evidence from human samples on the role of immune cells in Alzheimer's disease. And I have to say that this project was promoted, some of the ideas of this project stem from a previous ERC starting grant that we had on the molecular mechanism control leukocyte trafficking in the brain, the central nervous system. And this was a 4-year grant, so you don't have to apply necessarily for a 5-year grant, as Claudia mentioned before. And we had this opportunity with this starting grant to obtain some preliminary data which help us to apply for the ERC Advanced Grant.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And last but not least is Paolo Fiorini.
Thank you, Marta. Good morning, everybody. My grants are related to what is called embodied intelligence. So how do we combine robotics with artificial intelligence? And we chose the difficult field of robotic surgery to demonstrate the results. The choice is because of historic reason, and then goes to the discussion about CV and how you justify this the proposal. So basically, there's been a rather long track record of a funded proposal in this area. This was somehow the culmination, the ARS proposal, somehow the culmination of this research. In fact, going back to writing the proposal, that's the way I started the proposal. I know that there are these specific opportunities that motivate me to write this this proposal, and we can discuss that further. So basically, again, this is as it was said earlier, this is a very, very great opportunity to explore different fields. Of course, you should have a little bit of confidence and familiarity with how to write and how to behave in a European proposal. So there are deadlines, milestones, deliverables, and so forth, but they are not, in the case of the ERC grant, they're not specific for, don't have to be shown basically to the project officer, but are guidelines for you. And the structure of this proposal allows you to explore things that are perhaps outside what you thought at the beginning. You know, you explore, you find new ideas, you find new avenues that could be very interesting, and this grant allows you to do that. So this is a really fantastic research opportunity. And then you transfer some of the results in the proof of concept. Again, I also got a small proof of concept. Another one that I submitted was not accepted. Hopefully, I will present a few more. You're allowed to present this small proposal for before the end and after the end of your ERC grant. And this is more application. PROST is more application. Is you want to demonstrate that the technology is useful for something, some real practical application. And so I choose again another very difficult field, which is medical devices. But again, there is a hidden gem here that was not mentioned, that there is the new funding opportunity, which is called the European Innovation Council. And this year, the proposals are reserved to project or to proposal that come from proof of concept or from FET successful proposals. So again, this is another sort of hidden advantage of participating to the ERC funding scheme. And again, later on, we can talk more into the details of what the proposals are and how they were written.
Thank you, Paolo. So I will stop here this short introduction of the speakers of the roundtable. Okay, we go on. We have prepared some questions, then of course all the participants can ask their question on Slido. So the first question I would like to ask our guests in the roundtable is, and you already started answering it actually. So what is the background of your grant idea, and how much time did you spend for the elaboration of your proposal? You go always in alphabetical order, so first Matteo, then Dario, then Gabriela, then Paul. So what is the background of your idea, and how much time did you spend in preparing?
Okay, so the background of my idea essentially was all the research activity that I did after my PhD thesis. And so I had my PhD in 2008, and my ERC was accepted in 2015. So it was the last year for a starting grant. And yeah, the background was all the work that I did in that 7 years. But my proposal was different. I mean, it was a turning point compared to what I was doing at that point, because an ERC proposal should be really something new, some groundbreaking innovation that you are, of course, you have a background, but what you are proposing should be completely, completely, but should be different from your previous work. And for writing the proposal, I was quite fast because I took only 3 weeks for completing the proposal. But it was how can I say, the design of the proposal. It took around 1 year. So I was thinking in my mind, I was making some plans, I was writing something, but at the end, the finalization of the proposal with the real writings was quite fast in I think 3 weeks.
Great. Dario?
Yes, so the background is also in my case, the work that, so I've worked in the UK for nearly 10 years after my PhD in Verona, by the way, in 2009. So I worked in different institutions, starting with the British Museum. And the first time I conceived the idea was 2017. when I began to think about the possibility of developing this field of research in particular. And at the British Museum, I first designed a small concept of the grant, which could have been used for applying to a different funding within the UK. It was much smaller in scope. But then I moved to a different institution, the University of Warwick, and so for the moment, I put on hold, and I waited until I think the moment was more mature. And eventually, actually, I was also in a similar situation as Matteo, because when I applied, so I submitted in 2020, but that would have been, I think, the second to last call to which I would have been able to apply for the Consolidator grant. So I was relatively old for the scheme. And globally, I would say that having the idea so far ahead, then I began to develop the project a year before, in 2019. And the writing, I think, took me around 6 months, I would say, although obviously some months more consistently on a daily basis, whereas in the initial months, I began to collate ideas, information, talk to different people. So yes, this is more or less the timeline of how I developed my proposal.
Good. Gabriela, that's your turn.
Okay, so I'll speak about my experience with the advanced grant. So my idea to work on Alzheimer's disease came to my mind many years ago when I was a medical student. In Milan, I was doing experimental research here in Verona. And I remember I was collecting papers, were paper copies at that time, on Alzheimer's disease for my boss here in Verona, because I was doing research for a collaborative project here in Verona. And I found the Alzheimer's topic really fascinating. And then I thought more seriously to work on leukocytes and Alzheimer's disease when I came back from my working period at Stanford University in California, where I was studying leukocyte trafficking in the inflamed brain. However, at that time, I didn't have the manpower and the money to work on such an idea, because working on animal models of Alzheimer's disease and needing old mice for the experimental part, you need a lot of money. So basically, I started to make my very first experiments, helping me to build the final idea on the grant about 10 years ago. And this was due to my previous ERC starting grant, which gave me the context on neuroinflammation, neuroimmunology, and also gave me also the funding to start to develop my ideas for the ERC advanced grant. Regarding the writing, as Matteo said, it didn't take me too long, so it may seem weird, but I think I wrote it in about 2 weeks, but this was possible only because months before I thought about the idea, I organized objectives in my mind. I had the help of my collaborators to collect technical information necessary to develop the project and so on. So from my experience, you don't need so much time for the writing if you have clear ideas and also some, of course, experience in writing grants.
Thank you. That's very, very, very true. Paolo, it's your turn to answer the question.
Thank you, Marta. Yeah, I agree with that. Basically, it takes you very little time to write a proposal, to physically write a proposal. I remember that the deadline for my proposal was the 1st of September, and guess when I wrote my proposal during the month of August, and I was on vacation, so I didn't have any distraction, or at least not that many. However, one point that is important is that actually there are 2 points that are important. In the field of engineering, there is always the trade-off between science and engineering. So, I submitted quite a few previous proposals, 2, 3 before that. And of course, the comment was that was too much engineering with respect to the spirit of DRC. And the other point is that in a field like mice or robotics, even robotics applied to surgery, I mean, there are many aspects that can be the focus of the proposal, and some are okay aspects, some are the one that perhaps give you some criticism. So it takes a little bit of soul searching to figure out what is the best combination of science and then demonstration. So, you know, the balance, depending on your background, is a little difficult to find. As an engineer, I always tend to be more engineer-like, and the proposal get evaluated positively, but, you know, it's not groundbreaking and blah, blah, blah. So it is tricky. And again, in a given topic, you have probably like 10 possible avenues that you can explore for a grant, but not all of them have the same possibility of being funded in the same balance between science and engineering or science and application. So you have to be careful about that.
Right, and this actually gives the floor to the next question, which is related. So, how many times did you apply for the same, let's say, grant before getting funded? I start with Matteo again.
For the starting grant, I applied 2 times, and but the first time was just after the second year of my eligibility, while the second time was just the last year. And the 2 proposals at the end was quite different. So I mean, I started from the first one to prepare the second one, but I really changed in a significantly way. Also because my mind changed and I was able to improve it significantly. For the proof of concept, I applied the first time. I was not granted, but the second time I was granted.
Do you think your feedback, the feedback that you received from the first application were important for your second one?
Absolutely. Because from the feedback, I decided to completely remove one specific part of my project, which at the end I realized that was not the case to be in that proposal, and that was really important.
Exactly. Same question to Dario. So did you apply more than 1 time?
No, I only applied once. I was lucky enough to be successful at the first first attempt.
Great. Same question to Gabriela, but I think she also...
For the ERC advanced grant and for the proof of concept ERC grant, so for these 2 grants, I was successful the first time. But as Matteo, for the ERC starting grant, I had to apply 2 times. And the first time I was criticized that I didn't have some in vivo imaging methodologies here in place in Verona. And I wrote in the proposal I would develop those methodologies during the ERC grant. However, the reviewer didn't believe me. So the second year I applied with the same project. I didn't change a word, but that time I had methodologies and I was funded.
Okay, great. That's an important thing.
Yeah, so actually the project has to be bold, of course, high risk, high gain, but be careful. So this is my advice. Feasibility is very important. So the reviewers are very careful about feasibility.
Exactly, right. Paolo?
Yeah, well, as I said earlier, I applied 2 or 3 times before, still on the same subject, robotic surgery from different point of view. And in the previous times, although I thought it was also a scientific point, but probably was more technological than scientific. And then the last proposal, I went more into this embodied intelligence. It was like 4 years ago, start talking about autonomous devices, autonomous vehicles, and so there was big data, and so there were some buzzwords going around. And so, you know, in every proposal, there is 80%, 90% of quality and 10% of luck. So, you know, you need to be there with a good material, but also at the right time.
Good. Then I want to ask you all, how important was the support from the host institution and in particular of your peers? And actually, if you ask for a review of the proposal from your colleagues and if you ask to people who were expert in ERC grants to review your proposal or give you suggestions, and of course also other kind of support that you have, how important it was.
Okay, I will start. So for the management of the proposal, the host institution, so the Università di Verona, was extremely fine. I mean, I had all the possible support from all the people. I mean, I was also, I think, together with Gabriela, one of the first to have an ERC in Verona. So it was everything new also for the host institution. But I mean, the support was really fine. Not for the preparation of the proposal, because I prepared the proposal by myself. I didn't maybe mention to the research office that I was preparing this proposal. But I had asked, I mean, it was really important for me to have support from my colleagues that was already financed, and in particular for the preparation of the interview. The preparation of the interview was, I mean, crucial to have information from other ERC grantees that were in Brussels having the same experience for the interview, because it can be really tricky. So maybe if you want, we can go into details later, but having this information for me was essential. I just want to say another small thing about the host institution, saying that if you have an ERC grant, the ERC requires you to be fully independent, which means that you need to have your own group, which means that if in your host institution you are working with a mentor, you should have your own group and not working anymore with that mentor. And as some of you know, it was not so easy to achieve this in my case.
Thank you. Dario?
Yes, so the support from the host institution was absolutely crucial in many ways. I must mention that so I started to develop my proposal when I was still in the UK. So I began to get support from my previous institution, which was University of Warwick. But then essentially when I decided to move to Verona, to apply from Verona, the transition from a different system also to this one was very smooth, thanks particularly to the help of Alessio, who's here, and all the other members of staff who have made everything easier in terms of management and organization. And this was also very important for the preparation of the interview, as Matteo mentioned. The university have also supported me in having training, professional training from an agency for the interview. And we've also organized a mock interview within the department with other people suggested by me. So this was incredibly useful. I would highly recommend it. And for the preparation for the writing of the proposal itself, I also did it mostly by myself, but I seek advice from many other people, many of my peers. Actually, this was possibly one of the reasons why it took me maybe longer than the others here to write the proposal, because at different steps of the writing process, I asked for advice. I asked peers to read part of my text to improve it. I found advice from ERC grant holders, from previous grant ERC panel members. So I tried to get different points of view, different level of experience, and I literally traveled. So I took the opportunity of conferences in Denmark, in Germany, at Oxford, to try and get in touch with professors who are in the field to get advice. So my advice is get as much advice as possible. Don't be afraid of ask for help, because that is really crucial in the end.
Thank you, Dario. Gabriela, did you ask for advice to your colleagues?
So I agree that advice is precious, is always precious. In my case, I didn't ask advice for my colleagues who are, let's say, senior researchers, professor levels, or people who are panel members and so on. So I just I sorted my ideas together with my direct collaborators who helped me to collect technical information, for instance, needed for the methodology, helped me to obtain supporting data. So the support of my group was fundamental in my case. Also, the research office here from the Università of Verona was very helpful because it helped me with the budget and also checking all the costs. So again, this was important. So this was my experience.
Thank you. Paolo?
Yeah, well, same thing here. So I didn't ask for advice or for review of the proposal during the actual writing of the proposal, but several months before that, it was a topic of discussion. So in my case, in particular, when I started writing, I wrote half of a proposal about one topic, and then I decided that was not the right one, so I changed it. All of a sudden, I went in another direction, which was actually a good idea. But all the different aspects were discussed in the previous months with colleagues at conferences, at meetings. So really, the groundwork and the preparation was very long. And then again, thanks to the grant office here in Verona, they helped me with the budget, with the structure of the proposal, and so forth. So everything is that you can, every support you can get is always very helpful.
Yeah, thank you. I think that Claudia has some suggestions to give, right? Some hints on these topics.
Well, it's mainly comments, and based on what I've heard at different sessions like this. So for instance, the writing time needs, so that is really, really variable. And we have people that are very efficient. It's like writing a paper. Some people are super efficient. Some others take longer time. So there is not really a one size fits all. So people really have to find what is the most suitable time preparation for them. But it requires some thinking. It's not just something you can put together in a very short notice. The other thing is about the success rate. So I noticed that most of you, for the ones that were working with eligibility windows, you were successful when you applied in the last couple of years of the eligibility window. But actually, and this is indeed what we observe, is that the majority of the applicants apply in the 2 last years of the window of eligibility. But in fact, and we've done a lot of data analysis on this, the success rate is flat across all ages of PhD. So you should not feel that you are less successful if you apply earlier. So this is a myth that we really try to remove from prospective candidates. The other thing is about getting rejected. You know, I know it hurts to be rejected, but and you have very good examples here that go for it. It doesn't matter. You know, just take the comments, and build up, improve your proposals, but keep on going. And, you know, maybe you're no longer eligible, let's say in the starting grant, but it's not the end of the world. There's a new scheme. There is the other one. There's the Consolidated grant. So it's not the end of the world to get the rejection. So don't let yourself put off by being rejected the first time. Independence, this is very important. And I know we're in Italy, and this is one of the countries where we see that there is a cultural, let's say, resistance into providing some independence to early career scientists, that there is a tradition that, you know, the most senior person in the group should be a co-author in publications. This is very damaging. This is extremely damaging when you then are faced in a competition against other track records where the younger scientists can easily demonstrate that, you know, they're not publishing with their supervisors anymore and the senior researchers in the group. So think carefully how you can boost the independence of your young researchers. Do I have something else? Yes, I think the comment from Dario was very important. Even if maybe it was not followed, this approach by probing and really using some critical mass from previous panel members and former grantees. You have here, in fact, in this session, you have a lot of people that can help you to put together a kind of a pre-ERC, let's say, evaluation system, if you will. And this is what we observe that is in place in many of the most successful host institutions, is this building up on the experience that is available at the host institution and providing the best support to the candidates. So those were the comments I had. I hope they were useful.
Thank you. I think they were very useful. I'm also of the idea that you have to have most of the comments as possible from your peers, expert people who already had a grant or had an experience in evaluating ERC grants. I think that this is very important. Okay, now I would like to move to the interview, which some of you already started talking about. For those of you who had an interview, how did you prepare? How did you face it? And most important, do you think it was crucial for the evaluation of your proposal? I asked this thing also to Paolo, who didn't have experience with the interview, because this year the interview will be also for advanced grants, and the important thing is that do you think that this is a kind of useful thing, an improvement for you for having a better evaluation, or let's say a more sticky evaluation, a more clear evaluation of your proposal? So okay, so talk a little bit about the interview. So first of all, Matteo, you go ahead. You had experience.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the interview was essential in order to have at the end my ERC starting grant. Of course, I was not in the panel member, so I don't know. But for me, I think it was really important, and I tried to prepare as best as possible the interview. As I said before, I had this suggestion from other ERC grantees that already did the interview, and I went to Brussels 2 days in advance, and I closed in the hotel, repeating the interview more than 100 times. So at the end, my presentation was really inside of me, and I was also using the timer, because I know that you were entering into the room and the timer started, and you have, in my case, 10 minutes to present my project. So I was able really to have no variables. I mean, I knew at the time that I was starting my presentation. My presentation was in less than 10 minutes, and I knew exactly any word that I was saying. And then there was the second part. The second part was the questions from. It was important also to know that when you are presenting yourself, you are presenting to. I mean, at that time it was in presence. I don't know now, maybe not. But at that time, I was presenting in front of like maybe 12 people, but half of them was not listening to me, and this was normal because in the same rooms you have also panel members from other ERC sector, which are there in order to listen other possible principal investigator, and not me. But I mean, I was prepared for that, and I was not scared, seeing that there was only half of the people that was listening to me. And then there was the question, and the question was, I think, quite hard, saying that they were really pointing out to what were the weaknesses of my project, and I know that there was some weaknesses in the project and in my CV, and this question was exactly on that weaknesses, and I was somehow prepared, and I was already able to have some proper replies. I mean, I expected that question, and at the end that questions arrived. And I think that the interview should be prepared really in the best possible ways, really.
Thank you. Dario, you also had experience.
Yes, so, well, about the preparation, I've already mentioned a little bit what I've done. Like Matteo, I did obviously repeat the presentation so many times, also because the time slot is incredibly short. And as again, speaking with other people is very important, also to ask what kind of questions they received. So immediately after I found out I was shortlisted, I started to get in touch with other ERC grantees that I knew from the UK, and to collate as many questions as possible, so to have a kind of an idea of where they normally go when they ask you questions and what they want to achieve. The mock interview, I cannot stress enough how important it was. Again, in my mock interview, I had 3 grantee holders, including one who had been already a panel member. So, and just to give you an idea, I think I'm normally good at presentations, but when I started my presentation in the mock interview, at some point I blanked completely, which never happens to me. But then I managed to recover. But this is to give you an idea. Then luckily it didn't happen in the real interview. But that was a kind of maybe I was too relaxed, or maybe I was just too focused. So it was a kind of an important episode for me to realize that how I could improve. And then the interview itself, unfortunately, I was in the pandemic, so there was no face interview in Brussels, but it was all online on Zoom. So maybe it was less stressful. I don't know how it will be organized this year, maybe in the same way. What I didn't really like about the way in which the interview was structured is that we were not allowed to have slides, unlike in the past. And this, especially for me, having to talk about visual culture and material culture, I think somehow, obviously, it was a little bit weakening my presentation. On the other hand, given how short time you have, maybe it's less distracting to speak without slides. So it just be prepared that this is a possibility, and so you might have to focus on other aspects of your presentation. Yes, obviously there is less interaction in this way, but you're home, you're more relaxed, so there are ups and downs in doing it online, and as long as you're in a safe place where nobody is ringing the door, so I think you're okay.
Thank you, Dario. Gabriela, there is something you want to add?
So yeah, for the advanced grant, I didn't make an interview, but as Claudia said, also in the case of the advanced grant, the interview may clarify some of the doubts, of the weaknesses, apparent weaknesses of the project. For the starting grant, so I made 2 interviews because I applied 2 times. And yeah, I agree with Dario that making the interview from home or anywhere from your office, it's a luckier situation, because being physically, the European Commission in front of this panel, it's more stressful. And of course, I can say, as also Matteo said very well, explained very well, that the interview is tough. So you need to prepare very well the slides, what you are saying, the talk you gave is very short. You need to show you have expertise in the field. You get tough questions on the scientific part. So the proposal needs to be solid. You get also questions on methodologies. And as also Matteo mentioned, not all the panel members are expert in your field. So we can get also wired questions, and you have to answer somehow. And from the question I received, I also realized that not all panel members were listening while I was presenting my project, because I got questions on what I already said, I showed on my slides. So they didn't see my slide, they didn't listen what I was saying. Of course, I answered repeating what I was already, presented. So, but my feeling was that they were maybe following a kind of list of questions for our candidates, something like this. So for sure, you have to be well prepared. You have to be also, at least to show that you are self-confident and show that you have backup plans for the experimental part and so on.
Okay, thank you. Paolo, do you have something to add? I mean, do you think that having an interview would have helped you maybe in making your proposal more understandable to?
I had the only interview I had in Brussels. Actually, I had two interviews with two different projects, but the difficult one was there was a type of project that was called an integrated project, an IP, long time ago, and that required an interview. And that helped me explain some of the points that because of brevity or because of the shortage of text were not clear, or because, reading the proposal, I noticed that they were not perhaps written as good as they could have been written. So it's a good opportunity, I think. It is also is a risk because, as said earlier, you may get in trouble and you may get into panic mode, and then you may not give a very good impression to the panel.
Marta, can I add something that I?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I just realized I didn't really comment on what kind of questions I had. Now, referring to what Gabriela just said, the questions I had were clearly the points again raised by the anonymous reviewers. So after having been informed that I was successful, you received the reviews sent by the anonymous reviewers, and I could find most of the single points that were raised during the interview. So the bottom line is essentially that the interview obviously goes into double checking some of the points that have been raised. In my case, I think they were not as crucial as to reject I think most of the proposal had been accepted on the basis of what I had written, and so the points were mostly to double check some of the minor points. But yeah, just to summarize that, the questions I think are based essentially on what has been raised by the experts.
Good, thank you. So as a final tour de table, I would like to ask you if you have a takeaway message or a kind of final suggestion that you want to give to the potential applicants to the ERC. So Matteo, just to start with you.
Yeah, what I want to say is try it, because even writing a well-done proposal can be very important for all our scientific activities, and if the proposal is granted, it's really changed a lot.
Thank you, Dario.
On the basis of my experience, I would say, which might be a little bit different from the others, I would say take your time, because in my case, it helped a lot. So obviously, if you have a very well-defined idea and you have worked on it before, maybe can take shorter to write it. But in my case, taking my time to develop it and to gather as many information as possible was really crucial.
Thank you. Gabriela, do you have suggestions, final suggestions to give?
Well, like Matteo said, it's worth trying. absolutely, it may have a huge impact on your career. In my case, it had a huge impact on my academic career, both my grants, my ERC starting and advanced grants. And although it is very difficult to manage this kind of proposal, it gives you a huge opportunity to develop your ideas, to have a large team and be ambitious. So yeah, try it, absolutely.
Thank you. Paolo, final suggestion?
Yeah, well, there are a number of suggestions that you can make. You know, certainly is a good exercise, but has to be done with a grain of salt. You have to prepare it, you have to check your background, whether it's appropriate, whether you have the credibility to write a proposal, whether one of the difficulties, for instance, is they are still large except for the proof of concept, but also that the difficulties, they are long and large projects. So do you know how to write a work plan I mean, not in terms of work packages and so forth, but it's something is feasible from the point of view of implementation. On the other hand, this is one of the few opportunities of having a single PI grant. So really, you don't have the annoyance of building a consortium and talking to partners and so forth. And so this is a very good opportunity for a single person. And this, going back to writing and asking comments, I think it's very important that the proposal is written by a single person. So when you read the proposal, when a reviewer reads the proposal, has to have the feeling that there is a consistent train of thought. You know, I would say cut and paste, but different point of view, they are very, very evident when you review a proposal. And so even if you get all the comments, the advice from everybody, then it has to come as your own writings and has to be homogeneous and coherent. Otherwise, it really doesn't fly.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you to all the guests of this roundtable, and I think that your experience was precious for the participants to this event. And I will go back to the questions from our audience and see if there are other questions. Maybe there are questions also again for Claudia and Professor Bettinelli. First, I have to share this. Okay, so now we go through the most liked ones, I think. So the first question is, does it make sense to apply for advanced grant if you're still a researcher and not a full associate professor? I don't know who wants to answer this. I mean, it's a question for all the speakers, I guess.
I would like to answer this question.
Great.
I think this is a very clear, it's clearly an Italian problem. It's not an international problem. Because we are very hierarchical, much more than people are in other countries. Well, if you have a good idea, innovative, a breakthrough, you have published, extremely innovative science before. The label that you have, being it researcher, associate professor, full professor, doesn't make any difference. People understand and know that sometimes in Italy, the point that you have reached in your career is not directly correlated with your scientific quality. So I don't think there is any problem. If you feel that, if you are in the time window for an advanced grant, you have a good idea, you have a good track record, the label that you have on the door of your office is not very important. I don't know, Claudia, what you think.
I fully agree with you. This is just a title in a way. It doesn't. One thing is your track record, is what you demonstrated in your career, is what you have achieved, is how you demonstrate the impact that you have done in your field, what has been your contributions, the title is, and remember, you are eligible even to apply to a host institution that it's not your employer, so to say. You can do this. So, for instance, this is very common if you come from abroad, from outside Europe. So it means that you don't even have to have a link with the host institution. All we ask is that you have filled what we call the host institution letter, that there is a template that the host institution states, in the case of you obtaining an ERC grant, they will give you all the support necessary for the successful implementation of the project. So you don't even need to have any link with the institution that you apply to go to.
Great, thank you. The next question. Does it make sense to apply for, or do you stand a chance in obtaining a Consolidator grant if you never obtain a starting grant? I would answer yes.
Yes. Yes. If I can say something, you know, good ideas and groundbreaking ideas are not related to the stage of your career. You can have groundbreaking ideas when you are 40 and you are not eligible anymore for a starting grant. So why not? I mean, I can understand that sometimes there is a logical progression from the starting grant to Consolidator to advanced. But I know people who have got an advanced grant. They had groundbreaking ideas, but they never got a starting grant or a Consolidator grant. Of course, you have a chance. There's no problem.
Right. For Consolidator advanced programs, in evaluating a CV, what are the main lines you need to have? Publication, project, international roles. I would say for all the grants, actually. So maybe.
Again, you must have an excellent, groundbreaking idea. You must have published in good journals, but metrics are not so important. Previous projects, well, yes. If they show that you have already had groundbreaking ideas, I would say yes. International roles, I don't understand that so well that. If they are linked to your recognition, maybe. But I think what is important is that you have a good idea, you are independent, you are able to publish in good journals, but no metrics. H-index is not important.
Great. The next question is about eligibility. PIs can be from any nationalities. So what about the lead organization, probably the host organization on the research area and sites? This is more a question for Claudia, I think.
So to be an eligible host institution, it's very simple. It has to be located in a European member state or associated country. About the research area, well, I'm coordinating the Earth System Science. So of course, the research area is where it needs to be. It's the site is where you need to go to. So it can be in Antarctica, it can be in Indonesia, it can be anywhere. So the research area and field is up to you to decide.
Exactly. Right. How much time, this is a tricky question. How much time does an evaluator usually dedicate to read and assess a proposal in average?
I think I have to answer this.
Yes, right.
Depends on if you are reading a B1 or a B2. B1 is much shorter, B2 is longer and more detailed, but it takes days. It takes days. You can't. I would say half a day for a B1, maybe 1 day for a B2. Maybe I'm slow, but you need to read it carefully. You need to understand what it's written. You need to reflect. The evaluator has to work a lot. I have never, it depends on the project, of course. If you know very well the field, it could be faster, but if you are reading something you don't know that much about, you need to get documentation to understand the importance of an idea. So it's very difficult to answer. It takes a long time. It doesn't take 1 hour.
Right.
I can just confirm what Marco just said. It's really the feedback I get from the panel members is that it is hard work. And some of them, especially when it's a little bit outside their area of expertise, they go and they read the papers that the PI has published to try to understand exactly more about the subject, more about the field. So it is, I mean, we are very lucky. It's true that the recruitment process is very thorough and it consumes a lot of our time, but we are very, very lucky with the panel members that we generally have.
Okay. There's another question for Professor Bettinelli. As a panel member, how do you assess proposals that are not exactly in your specific discipline or topic? What are you looking at?
Of course, I try to get documented a little bit. Otherwise, if the proposal is in a field which is adjacent to mine, which I know a little bit or more than a little bit, I look at the logic. I look at the degree of innovation. I look at the feasibility, which is extremely important. I look at if there are plans to mitigate the risk. But the innovation is the most important thing. If the proposal is in a completely different field, I need to work more because I need to, try to look at the literature, connect to something that I know. Of course, I look at the logical description. I look at the coherence of the proposal. I try to figure out what is the feasibility, but especially, again, the innovative nature and the groundbreaking nature. With experience helps. Experience helps because now I think I can judge the groundbreaking nature much better than I did the first time I was in the panel. But I do not decide anything. I write a comment, and then we go and discuss together, and maybe there are experts on this field. So the discussion in the panel helps a lot, even if you don't know that much. There will be somebody able to explain to you what is the novelty, what is the high gain. And you must take into account that the decision is made in the second step, in which there are reviews coming from experts. So we have in front of us reviews written by experts. So the very important decisions are made with the help of real experts.
Right, that's true. This question is related to something that was shown in the beginning. So, plan to publish without your PhD and postdoc advisor. This is a suggestion that you gave. So does this mean that publication from your thesis or research work part of your PhD or postdoc?
Now, you need to prove that you are independent.
Right.
So a good idea, in my opinion, is not to stay always in the same place. If you get your PhD in one lab, and then you become a postdoc in the same lab, and then, I mean, Matteo knows very well these things, and then you become a researcher in the same lab, of course, you create a sort of dependence on the mentor. But if you move from one place to another, it is much more likely that you are perceived as independent. I can tell you, in my career, I moved from one place to another many times, and I was independent very quickly. And I was publishing with different people, but we were collaborating, but they were working on my ideas. And I know in Italy, this is particularly difficult because getting away from your mentors and PhD and postdoc advisors is a difficult task. But you need to make an effort to avoid that. Move somewhere else.
Thank you. This is a question that probably was raised by some suggestions that were during the roundtable. Probably Gabriela said something about it. So, are preliminary technical unpublished data essential or necessary for a successful evaluation of the proposal?
I think I can also reply to this, answer to this. Preliminary data make a proposal stronger. If you don't present preliminary data in your proposal, and what you propose comes out of nothing, and there is no guarantee that the, preliminary data enhance the feasibility of your proposal. So if you have published something that is preliminary to the full development of the proposal, you have published something that hints at what you are proposing, this makes the proposal stronger, in my opinion. Unpublished data depends if they can be trusted or not. Because if you publish preliminary data, which are consequential for the development of the proposal, they can be trusted. If you have an idea and don't have published data, depends what you write, how you write, and how you justify and discuss what you are presenting.
Okay.
You cannot trust everybody saying, I've done this preliminary experiment and I've got this incredible result that I still haven't published. This is a little bit dangerous. It is risky for a reviewer. So preliminary data are important, but fully unpublished data, unless you show evidence in the proposal. It's a difficult question.
Yeah, there are other comments on expertise on this, on experience, sorry, on this.
Yeah, I agree with what Marco said, that you need supporting data that were published, possibly on a very good journal. And yeah, also some maybe preliminary unpublished data, but of course, the viewers will trust what you already published. So maybe the best situation would be to have supporting data published very recently, just before you apply for your ERC grant. Possibly, of course, as I said, on a very good journal.
Right. Other comments on this? Okay. Yes, related to this, probably there is this last question, last minute question, which is probably from the same person, because how do you suggest to balance high risk and feasibility?
If I can say something, what is specified in your comment form of the B1 and B2 proposals forms, the question is the proposed research feasible, taking into account the high gain, high risk, high gain character of the proposal? So the proposal must be feasible, but it must not be routine. The proposal must be high risk, high gain. So there must be a risk. But if the proposal is funded, the gain should be very, very high. And there are signs that the proposed research can be carried out. And here comes into play the risk management plans. Because if you propose something that is really very high risk, you need to, propose a plan in which the risk is mitigated. If something goes badly wrong, I propose to do this, further experiments, take a slightly different direction, what is called contingency plans. I know it's high risk, high gain is a very difficult concept, because if it is high risk, the feasibility should be low. No, because in a way, if you have a very good track record, you are able to solve even difficult problems. So you have also to check back the track record of the PI.
Yeah, exactly. I have just a little bit of a comment myself. I think that the problem here is that you can demonstrate feasibility with previously obtained results, but the project that you're going to present doesn't have to be incremental in research. So high risk means this, basically.
Yes.
Do you have, these questions, this one that I highlighted and the next one, which is again against balance, are almost the same question. And I would ask also the experience of the grantees in this sense. So how did you manage to balance in your proposal these two aspects? So having preliminary data but showing that the results of your project would be high risk in general.
Yeah, I think. Sorry.
No, I just want to give my experience where I was presenting some preliminary data, which was supporting my idea, and the feasibility in my project was that all the methods and all the activity that I was proposing was indeed feasible. The risk was that maybe I was not, I mean, the hypothesis that was behind my idea maybe was not proven in different contexts and in different conditions. And this was part of the project in order to prove that my hypothesis was at the end extendable at in different aspects. And this works. I mean, because I was properly mentioning in my proposal that this was the risk, and I was also presenting a contingency plan, and yeah, so this is my experience.
Yes, maybe I can somehow sum up my answer, referring to both the second and the third questions. That
exactly, I was meaning to ask you also some suggestions for this.
Because the third one is about the history of the human past, which obviously is very broad as a definition, but it's very much different from, I suppose, some hard science that has been discussed here. So I don't know how you define high risk in the history of humans past, and in fact, it was probably one of the main problems that I had in writing the proposal. And again, I asked advice because I didn't quite think that there was enough risk and clearly stated in my proposal. So because my research obviously means accessing materials, archaeological materials from museums, my main concern was to be able to access this museum. So this was the potential risk that I could see, and I tried to explain how I thought I could try to solve this potential problem. And then, of course, the other main risk, which is somehow shared with other disciplines, is how much innovative is what you are trying to propose. Will you be able to do something really groundbreaking? Referring to the possibility to show preliminary research data, what I did in particular, because I was testing a new way of integrating the data for reconstructing the provincial portrait using 3D technology, I did essentially a small experiment, like, again, 4 months before submitting my application. I managed to arrange this with my previous university and the British Museum. And although obviously I wasn't able to publish the data in such a short time, I did include it in the proposal. I did actually, the image that is included in my slide is one of the part of the experiments that I did. And so I tried to explain that this was possible, that this was feasible, but that it still needed a lot of time, resources, both human resources, but also financial resources to achieve it on a larger scale. So one of the elements on which maybe you can play is that one thing is testing on a small pilot experiment. Another thing is implementing a methodology on a larger scale that allows you to come to definite conclusions and to groundbreaking results.
Well, just to add a few words from my experience. So the high risk part, of course, it has to be, as Marco said, high risk has high gain. The high risk from grants like my projects came from the usage of advanced methodologies, such as, for instance, in vivo imaging and complex animal models of disease. But if you have some publications, maybe recent publications, in which you use those technologies, you can demonstrate feasibility. You can balance, high risk with feasibility. And this was from my experience. Publishing something that shows that the high risk can be overcome, it's important.
Good, thank you. I think that we answered all the questions, and we are a little bit late, so I would like to thank all the speakers and the guests from this event. In particular, of course, Claudia, Jesus-Rydin, who is a senior officer, a senior program officer at the ERC, so she was a precious help in our event here. I also asked Claudio Zaccone, who is a professor and was in contact with Claudia, so he gave us this opportunity. I asked Professor Bettinelli, who was very, very useful with his experience as evaluator, and all the grantees. Now I'm going to, not in alphabetical order, because I want to express my thanks to Gabriela Constantin, who is the only woman we had as an experienced grantee, and I want to ask Matteo Ballottari, Dario Calomino, and Paolo Fiorini. So I also asked my colleagues who helped in the preparation of this event, and all the attendants and participants. I hope that you find this interesting, and that you're going to present many ERC proposals. We are here to help as a grant office. So thank everybody for attending this event. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Thank you.